Again, it is good to be back up in this part of the state. I think I tell my wife I go home and I see a vacancy sign outside of my house because I am on the road so much. But you know, it is something that education has been a part of my life for 22 years. You know, it is, you know, really even before that with working with young people within my church, really since I graduated from high school. But a little bit about my background. Again, prior to getting into education, I was a purchasing agent for a company out of Kennesaw up in Newark, New Jersey. So I bring, you know, a little bit of background with that. But I received my undergraduate degree at Kennesaw, graduate degree down in Valdosta State. But for 22 years, I did work in the Irwin County school system. 14 years of those, I worked as a high school social studies teacher. During that time, I had the pleasure of coaching as well. So, you know, once the bell rung, then, you know, I just continued to work with my kids. 8 years in administration, and that covers assistant principal, K-5 curriculum director, hospital homebound system director, homeschool system director, middle school, high school alternative, principal, and pre-K principal as well. So, you know, with the educational experience that I bring pre-K through 12th grade experience at the school level. So all the things I talk about, all the implementation that was there, you know, were things that I had to deal with firsthand. And today I'm a small business owner, so, you know, it is kind of a business education background that I do bring to the plate. But as stated, 4 years ago, I did, you know, make a run for state school superintendent, and there was issues that what I saw then, you know, that we still face today. Things that, you know, I kind of spoke out, you know, against, you know, have not disappeared. So that is why I'm here to continue on with this journey and again to ask for your help and support. And so where are we? We know what the issues and what we know what the problems of education are. But I'm here today to say that, you know, I'm a candidate of solutions. And I want to share with you what I call my C4 solutions. We're going to look at 4 different areas real quickly and, you know, just got to give you a summary of what's there. But first of all, when I look at C1, we have to be child focused. You know, children are the focus of education. We have allowed ourselves to take our eye off of that. Now, with being, you know, child focused, you know, we have to look at, you know, the overall child. And that means that we need to personalize education and not standardize education. It has become standardized. And you look at all the data collecting that's going on, we have replaced your children's names with numbers. And so we've got to get back to the fact and the point where we in education address the specific needs of each and every child that comes through the door. That's the only way we're going to improve that, you know, within the confines of what we control. And so as we look at that, that means that we have to move away from teaching to the test. We have to go back to teaching to the child. You know, we are so test driven. One of the things that I lived with in public education out of No Child Left Behind was test, 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 test. That is all I heard. When it came down, especially in the spring, when school, you know, officials started talking, you know, we were trying to look at how do we improve our test scores, not improve, you know, our child's performance. And so we have got to move away from that and again, once again, focus on true academic learning. You know, as I shared with people with like the CRCT, the test you all hear about in the spring, I just basically said that was an autopsy report. It did nothing for you know, improving education. We looked at it, determined what the kids did, did they live or die, and then we moved on. You know, and got ready for next year. You know, and once we got ready for next year, we did not take the kids where they were, but we just started at X point and moved forward. So we've got to do that. Now, in order to personalize education, we have to give our teachers the time to interact directly with your kids. That means we need to either, you know, reduce or eliminate paperwork. We need to eliminate testing. We need to eliminate data collecting. Because if our teachers are dealing with that, guess who they're not dealing with? That's your kids. And so we've got to allow them the opportunity to once again take control of their classroom, close their door and teach, and interact directly with your kids so that they can meet the needs. Secondly, what I call C2 is common sense over common core. Now in 2010 when I ran, I was the only candidate out there on the Republican side that was vocally and outwardly saying we do not need Race to the Top grant, we do not need common core. My position has not changed. Now I was, you know, kind of a lone voice at that time, but it was something that was done. Now, if you remember in 2010, Ms. Cox, our superintendent, you know, stepped down. Governor Perdue had the chance to appoint someone, you know, to that position. He chose somebody that was in favor of Common Core and Race to the Top grant. So that is how adamant and what we have seen, that we're allowed down that path because of some mistaken, values and input, from individuals that unfortunately, we are where we are at this point in time. But for education in Georgia, being a strong constitutionalist, if we're going to improve education, we've got to control education. And that means, first of all, we follow our Constitution. There's something called Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution of the United States that tells us specifically what the role of government is. Education is not mentioned anywhere in there. Now, if you go to Article 8 of the Georgia Constitution, you find a whole section of what it addresses education. In fact, if you go back to, I believe, our earliest education, our Constitution, 1798, we start to make a commitment to Georgia, to public education at that time. So first of all, we just need to follow the law. Now, in my ideal world, what I would love to see is the complete abolishment of the Department of Education. Since the Carter administration, elevated it to the cabinet level position, I can honestly tell you, education in Georgia and education in the United States has not improved. And so we need to look at that. But we need to make sure that we control it. And again, like I said, any type of legislation that comes down, if it hampers, seeks to control, anything that goes on our right to govern, we should just say no. Now, also, we're looking at our standards and things of that nature. We need to make sure that our kids have the very best standards, because when we talk about standards, we're talking about what we actually teach our kids. And that's so critical. That is if you look at research, that is the number one thing that a school has that has a direct correlation on student learning with that. So again, what we teach is vitally important. Now, thirdly, as we look at that, what I call C3 is that we concentrate on the classroom. That's where our kids learn. That's where our teachers teach. That's where education takes place. And so all the policy decisions that we make need to be looked through that prism. Now, for myself, I'm a strong foundationalist, and again, building on the basics. We need to emphasize or re-emphasize reading, writing, and math. But we need to really target that in the K-5 area. Because, again, research is showing that if we are not on grade level, if we do not have the proficiency needed, by the time they leave fifth grade, our kids technically will become more and more behind as they go on. They do not have, the foundational skills that require them to succeed in the higher level classes that we look at. And so that is something that for myself I am very, very motivated to do. Because as an individual who worked at the high school, I saw what was coming down from the elementary school, and that was concerns. My kids always knew content, but they just could not read appropriately. They did not have the skills that were needed there. And so when I worked at the elementary school, that's what I saw, and I saw what the teachers were up against. So we need to break that mold that's there. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is literacy. I want to make sure that we are the number one literate state in our nation. Because if we open up the doors of our children being able to read, then we open up opportunities that will transcend beyond school. They will continue to learn. They will continue to have good jobs, and have the affordability to do that. They will know what it means to be an American and try, and maintain our democracy. So literacy is very, very important. In doing that, I believe we even need to address that before they get into school. Work with our profit agencies to put books into the hands of our parents. To tell them and instruct them why literacy is important. My wife, who's this is her 30th year as a reading specialist, a reading recovery specialist, has always told me, said, Richard, the best thing that we could do is have our parents take their child in 5 minutes a night, read a book. It will increase their vocabulary. It will increase, their word and organization and structure. And so that is something that I am very committed to as well. Also, when we look at building on the basics, for an individual, especially an individual who has taught history and government, we need to do a better job with teaching our students about the true American history. Not progressivism, not liberalism, but just the simple truth, okay? And we need to make sure that we guard that, to make sure that whatever comes into our state is academically sound in that. And that means teaching the Constitution. That means teaching the Declaration of Independence, doing the Federalist Papers, the Anti-Federalist Papers, going back to the Mayflower Compact. Letting our kids know, what is so great about our nation. Because there is something called American, exceptionalism. And that's what we need to instill. Like I said, we do not need to apologize to anybody for the greatness of our nation. What we're facing now is that we want to bring America down to a sub-level. but we should be rising up and making sure that other people rise up to our level. And that's what we're seeing in education. We are dumbing down. We are setting the bar low. I mean, anybody can dunk a basketball when it's set down here on the floor, okay? But we need to make sure that it remains high. And so that is one of the things I've committed to do is make sure that our standards, and again, especially in this area, is very, very solid. Also, we need to make sure that we offer our kids, choice as far as academics. One of the things what we saw that with No Child Left Behind, we had a one-size-fits-all. Everybody was college material. But we know that is not the case. Everybody is different. As I said, we need to make sure that education is personalized and not standardized. And so that means that when we look at our course offering, let's make sure that we do not forget music. Let's make sure that we do not forget art, physical ed. Let's do some things that expand our offerings in the technical school area. Looking at, there's a shortage of welders across in our state and in our nation. Doing some things that, are very skill oriented for individuals that are special needs or those that have just, different, abilities. This offers them an opportunity to receive a good paying job, to have meaning in life. One of the things we look at is, as I said, is just as one size fits all. It does not work. For those of you that have children, I can guarantee that both those kids or all those kids did not come out the same. We are not manufacturing manufactured parts. We are dealing with individual kids. Manufacturing is easy. I can give you some specifics. I can put that there. But this takes work. And again, for those of you that have been parents, it does take work. And it's something you have to work at every single day. But we have to be allowed to do that. And the last thing I look at, what I call C4, is just cost effective. We have to make sure that we are good stewards of your money. Okay, that's I don't call it state money. I don't call it federal money. It is your money, because government does not generate anything. They may print a lot of it, but they do not generate it. Okay, so as we look at that, one of the things I stand on is that defending against unfunded mandates. We have to be willing to say no to anything that comes down from the state level to the federal level, because if we cannot afford it, we do not need it. That's just simple. That's the way I run my personal life. That's the way I run my business. And so I think that mentality is there, and we have to make sure that we do that. And in fact, as we look at these things, I would rather say that we need to look at completely auditing the Department of Education and expanding that and getting out some of the regulation. That will help. And the last thing I look at is that we have maybe creating a purchasing consortium voluntary across the state. Now, that will allow school systems to pull resources together to better spend their money, to be aggressive buyers, because I believe we are the customer, but to be aggressive buyers in using our funds to reduce costs. And that will help us out. That's just old-fashioned business. Coweta, if you're buying a couple buses, you may get a price. But if we pull together and we're buying 100 buses across the state, we can get a better price. And I hate to tell you, but we buy a lot of toilet paper in schools. We buy a lot of copying paper in schools. We buy a lot of supplies, whether it's markers or whatever. So let's do some smart business things to do that. And so as I conclude today with that, there's always three things that I ask for you to, for your help if you want to support this campaign. First of all, you begin the day with prayer. I always tell people, please pray for this campaign. Pray for me, pray for all our candidates, across the board. That's first and foremost. And then as your next state school superintendent, don't stop praying, okay? Because the work has just begun. Secondly, I need your help to get my name out. There's only one of me. Georgia's big. It has not gotten any smaller since 2010. So you need to start today. Don't wait till May 20th. May 20th too late. So please help, and if you want to become part of the campaign, do so. And again, as mentioned, if you have any spare change, you find in your couch or your recliner, I can use that. Like I said, I live in South Georgia, and like I said, it's a lot of traveling. But I do thank you for your time. If I have time for a few questions, I'll be glad to field what I can, and not, I'll be around. And please contact me later on. Thank you.
We got about 5 to 10 minutes for questions. So, got any questions? We have I wrote down two. Just think while you're speaking. Anybody got any questions so far? Nancy.
What is the rate of the high school dropout rate?
We're, I think, mid-70 right now with that. But we graduate that many. Okay, we graduate. Yeah, not yet. Not yet. Let me correct that. Yeah. But I think you have to look at, when you look at graduation rates, there are other things that we look at. For like our special ed students, I think with some of their diploma selection, they're not even included in that, even though they may, quote, graduate and get a diploma, but it's not added to that. You know, and I know some have kind of compared us to around the states, but at least with, I know with our Georgia performance standards, we had the 6th highest ranked standards. So I think everybody around us, you know, from what I've seen, has a little bit lower. So, you know, when you say graduation rates, you know, you have to look at the information completely. It is something, but it is something we have to improve on. That goes without saying.
And in Common Core make it worse?
With the graduation rate, I mean, with the kids that come out, I would say yes, but I don't think, I mean, you can manipulate things. And I've seen that with our CRCT over the years. See, we were changing the cut scores. In other words, we were kind of lowering the number of questions that needed to be correct. So, you know, I'd say, now, will we graduate more? We could if we lower the standards, but until those are, you know, specifically set. Yes.
30-second questions, 1 minute answer.
Okay, all right, we'll try to get that in there.
You're
Okay.
doing great. Just
In talking to some of the teachers here in Coweta County, one of the things that I'm hearing a lot is that the teachers are just worn out.
Yes, ma'am.
Because they keep changing the curriculum, the standards, and the testing, and this, that, and the other. And the teachers are just tired. How do we address this? I mean, and because if you're elected or Mary Kay's elected, you've got to go in there and start basically from ground zero. But how do we do this quickly so that our teachers know that, okay, this is what I'm going to have to work with. I'm going to let me go back to work and do my job, and the government is going to stay out of my way.
Okay.
How do we do this?
Okay, good question. And again, that's an answer that, I mean, one of the concerns I have heard. For myself, we need to have stability in this office. I mean, during my lifetime, I've already seen 4 state school superintendents, 3 in a relatively short concession. As your next state school superintendent, I will not run for another political office, okay? I know the job cannot get done in 4 years, so I'm here for the long term. I think adding stability to that. I think when we look at what we've done with Common Core, but I go back to the Race to the Top grant, there are a lot of things that we have initiated, whether it's the accountability, whether it's teacher review, administrative review, we have our standards. We dump that all in the plate of our teachers. That was wrong. You know, first of all, we have no idea what's working or not working because we've added so many ingredients to the pie, it's hard to do that. To me, I said, let's focus on one thing first, such as standards. Let's get that right and move on. Because we cannot have tests, we cannot have measurements until we set that first. And so let's, you know, as I said, we're very, very systematic, and then move on to the next step. And that's the way I, you know, did things. I mean, I would have teachers. That one of the fact, the teacher that I was working with in Irwin County said, Richard, that's what I liked about you. We did not move on, you know, and try to do things, you know, put the cart before the horse. So let's take it slow and do it right. You know, so that's my pledge there.
Yeah.
The few years that I taught special ed, and the GPS, the Georgia Performance Standards, was imposed on special ed. And the crazy thing about it is they would come in, everyone would come in and says, this is what your kids have to learn still, even with Georgia Performance Standards. Even though you talk about Common Core, and I feel like Georgia Performance Standards were better, but looking at it and everyone looking at their own children brains develop differently. What I understood in elementary, I understood better in high school. And when I went to college, it all came together. My thing is, how are you going to approach that in the classroom? I still feel, and this is me, just simply teaching the way we were taught, it was nothing wrong with it. We have all these great technologies because of people out of our generation, which is basically math, arithmetic, reading, and good language arts, or we used to call it English or grammar. Just simple stuff. That way, and you keep teaching it so the brain can absorb it. And then when you get to high school, you add on, and you add on, and add on. When you get to college, you have enough in your brain to do what's in college. How are you going to approach that with the classrooms? Because I know everyone learns differently. But if you just do it simple, I don't understand these standards. I understand them because I taught, but I mean, it's too much to do. Georgia Performance Standards, too much paperwork. Common Core is ridiculous. It's actually stupid. Just keep it simple.
Yeah. Well, I think probably one of the wisest things my college professor ever told me was use the acronym KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Well, that's what we need to do. We need to simplify the bureaucracy. And, and because I share what people say, when I go out to my car and I lift up my hood, I see a lot of regulation. It has nothing to do with the efficiency of my car. When I go to a school and lift up the educational hood, that's what I see is a lot of regulation. It has nothing to do with the child education. So we need to make sure that we streamline that. One of the things I would look at, of course, coming out of Georgia Performance Standards, what you did have was that it was one size fits all. I mean, everybody's going to college, and whether you were special ed or whatever, when it came test time, you were all you were expected to have the same test, the same results, quote, for the test. As I said, we're teaching to the test, not to the child. We need to reverse that.
Hence the cheating scandal.
Yes.
If it wasn't for the CRCT and us having to approve our schools,
Yeah.
no one would be cheating. I mean, what happened to the California achievement test? The simple test to determine whether your child is going to be low, middle, or high level learner. It just makes it easier. And it makes learning much more fun. My kids are just, I have intelligent children, and they say, Mom, it's stupid. School's dumb. They're teaching us stuff. It doesn't make any sense what they're teaching us.
Yeah.
And I feel for them. I can't even sit in the classroom to find out what they're learning.
Yeah, well, and like I said, with Georgia Performance Standards, I mean, they were scored to actually take 17 years to cover, where your kids are only in 13, so you can see how much. I mean, it was academically, it was impossible to cover everything. And I'm just saying, just to cover the standards, I didn't say learn. So, I mean, there's a quantity versus quality that we have to look at and make sure we're there. I think to address your concern with your kids, we need to have, a skill-based promotion, okay? That allows teachers to address the kids where they're at, not determine whether you just get a report card and, move on to the next level. Because what is happening is that when our teachers, when we're test-driven, what has happened is that at the beginning of the year, it didn't matter where your kids were. They knew that they had to cover standards during a base year because they were going to be measured on that. And so for those kids that were behind, each year they became exponentially further and further and further behind. So, for anybody that was a low learner or slow learner or whatever, I mean, it basically was killing them. And that's why as you look at in our state, when you look at issues such as literacy, I think literacy is a very good, level of what we look at, what we're producing. I think in Georgia, we're graduating, if I'm not mistaken, around the kid has about an 8th grade learning level on average. So, I mean, we've just basically thrown away 4 years. So, we need to look at what truly has an impact with that. Allow our teachers to teach, but we've got to have the flexibility, as I said, we've got to personalize and not standardize education, if we're going to improve it.
We only got time for 1 or 2 more questions. When you ask a long question, when you comment, I hate to be the bad cop here, but you not only take from the other people, but you make him have to give a long answer. So please keep it down to 30 seconds. Go ahead.
I just have a comment.
Sure.
You do make a hard choice.
Yes, sir.
Whichever one of you win, I would hope would try to hire the other one to have the position.
Well, I would say this. I would be glad to have the good doctor. So, I'll look forward to doing that. But it is. I mean, there's a lot of us to choose from. But I think when you get down to the brass tacks, there are differences there, and especially with the other 7 candidates across the board. Yes.
Okay. I appreciate your comments on vocational training. And I was a teacher for many years, and I had even 4th and 5th grade students who would have greatly benefited from vocational training. I think this thing of getting everybody on a college track is wrong. So how would you address that? The need to provide, increase, develop vocational training
Okay. Several things I've looked at. I've actually, for myself, I've worked or at least reached out to other departments. Ag Commissioner Gary Black. I've talked with him and said, listen, what are some things that we can do, especially trying to add, ag to the dimension, to work together to put ag classes in there and ag experiences, whether it's business or things like that. So that's one thing we could look at doing. There is a move to really expand that, but I think working with our technical schools, doing a deeper partnership would be another avenue that we could do. I mean, it would be great that if our kids, by the time they graduated, they may come out with a 2-year degree. I mean, that would motivate our kids to do that. So that would be something that would be there. We have to look at, again, addressing our standards and addressing our graduation, giving us multiple diplomas. You know, for a while it was just basically we were in a 1 diploma selection. But whether it's technical school, kind of a general diploma, which it may be a college, you know, vocational mix, you know, a general, as I said, you know, a STEM class. So let's go back and add some variety there, working with business, working with our universities, working with our technical schools, working with our local, you know, groups to reach out and put that back in. I mean, because even with today, with some virtual training, we can actually bring in some very knowledgeable people in that area, and where, quote, you may not have the facility per se to do it, but it does open an opportunity where you can have that as well in your classes.
Thank you very much, Richard.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.